Episode 19 of Demon Slayer Yaiba has been considered by many to be the best anime episode of 2019, and I would be inclined to agree to a certain extent. Along with episode 5 of Mob Psycho 100 Season 2, and episodes 108 and 146 of Pokemon Sun and Moon, it stands as a testament to not only the power of anime to move its audience, but also serves as a culmination of the show's most poignant ideas, as well as a springboard into further exploration of those ideas. And that's what I want to examine today. Episode 19 doesn't exist as a separate entity, and the ideas that were built up prior to that episode are what led to it being so spectacular. So, let's jump all the way back to episode 1, the moment where Demon Slayer's theme of family was first introduced. When it comes to anime protagonist origins, dead family certainly isn't the most unique trope, but it's still important that we see this kind of origin in the moment. Tanjiro had a loving family that cared for him and he cared for in return. The love they show each other feels genuine and real, and a demon violently rips this away from him. But it's not just any demon. As we find out later, it was the big bad himself, Kibutsuji Muzan, who destroyed Tanjiro's family and stripped his sister Nezuko of her humanity. While I do feel that the setup for the murder of Tanjiro's family was extremely on the nose and insanely predictable, I think these obvious death flags also worked in subconsciously cementing how important family would be for the rest of the story, as this concept ultimately forms the backbone of every major thematic idea in Demon Slayer. It's also vital that Nezuko is kept alive and that Tanjiro tries to find a way to turn her back into a human. While this does make the story more interesting from a narrative perspective, as it both gives Tanjiro another task to accomplish other than revenge, and adds the concept of a benevolent demon into the mix right away, it's the thematic meaning that interests me the most. At any point, Tanjiro could have listened to the other Demon Slayers and killed his sister simply for being a demon, but Tanjiro refuses to sever the last remaining family bond he has. To him, protecting his family is more important than his own life, as he often throws himself in harm's way to protect Nezuko, even when she's fully capable of protecting herself. Tanjiro's motives become inherently more altruistic, as he is working directly to help his sister, rather than being more selfish and simply working towards revenge. This brings us to episode 3, where Tanjiro trains with Urokodaki for 2 whole years and inevitably grows closer to him. While Urokodaki is not a blood relation to Tanjiro, it's pretty apparent by the time his training is over that these two share a bond that runs much deeper than just master and apprentice. What we have here is not an example of a relationship via blood, but simply an exhibit of how humans can form deeper, more intimate connections with each other. In contrast, we have the demons themselves. During the final selection, the Hand Demon and the lead up to Tanjiro's fight with him serve many thematic purposes. Prior to engaging the Hand Demon, Tanjiro is attacked by 2 other demons during his exam. However, rather than work together to defeat Tanjiro, they end up fighting each other for going after the same prey. This establishes the precedent that, unless under special circumstances, demons do not work together, which is later reinforced during the Drumhouse arc. They are entirely self-centered creatures that yearn solely to satisfy their own hunger. Even if working together would be more beneficial, they still choose to work on their own because their nature as demons leads them to be more solitary. Another example of this can be found in the Asakusa arc. Here, Tanjiro fights 2 demons that were sent by Kibutsuji to kill him. However, it's quite clear that these demons don't get along with each other at all, and are working together solely because Kibutsuji told them to, and defying him would mean certain death. Had these two been able to form a more cooperative bond and worked with each other freely, rather than on someone else's orders, they might have posed an even greater threat to Tanjiro. But ultimately, the work of 2 unconnected demons simply couldn't overcome Tanjiro and his deeper cooperation with Nezuko. The vast majority of demons simply cannot understand the concept of a family, and their actions typically lead to the destruction of families, as exemplified by the Hand Demon. As one who has prided himself on specifically killing Urokodaki's apprentices as punishment for Urokodaki imprisoning him in the Wisteria Forest, the Hand Demon is deliberately targeting all of Urokodaki's bonds, placing him in direct opposition to Tanjiro's belief in protecting his own bonds. As such, it was only fitting that Tanjiro be the one to defeat the Hand Demon, finally ending the terror he cast over Urokodaki. As a brief aside, it's kind of fascinating that almost all of Tanjiro's conflicts with demons before Naragumo Mountain revolve around Tanjiro protecting or avenging some sort of familial relationship. His first mission has him chasing down a demon who killed a young man's fiancée, Asakusa has him confronting Kibutsuji, who destroyed his own family, and Drumhouse has him saving the older brother of two younger siblings, and it almost begins to feel deliberate at this point. These missions could have revolved around protecting some kind of VIP or just not mention the family aspects at all, but having these aspects present draws attention to how prevalent this theme is, even with something as simple as the Hand Demon. However, the Hand Demon still has some complexity to him, much like many of the other demons Tanjiro faces throughout the series. As he dies, his mind flashes back to a time before he became a demon, and a memory of his older brother. This serves as a reminder that demons were not born evil. They were once humans themselves, and were ripped away from their own families, making them much more sympathetic than simple monsters that need to be killed. This also gives more urgency to Tanjiro's quest of discovering a cure for Nezuko, as this cure could also be used on other demons and prevent further destruction of other families. Of course, just finding the cure is only part of the plan, as eliminating the source of demon creation is also a top priority. With that, we come back to Kibutsuji, whose every action paints him as the exact antithesis to Tanjiro's ideals about family. Whereas Tanjiro's core values are built around a loving and caring family to fall back on, Kibutsuji is the epitome of the solitary demon. Not only that, but he even appears to make a mockery of the human family by having a fake family of his own in order to conceal his identity in human society. Though the extent of how deeply this act goes hasn't been revealed in the anime yet, it's clear through Kibutsuji's other actions that family is not something he is particularly fond of. In fact, we see once again that he has no qualms with tearing families apart. After his confrontation with Tanjiro, he bumps into a group of humans in an alleyway and completely eviscerates them. During this altercation, one of the men refers to the other one as Aniki, which can roughly be translated to Big Bro. It's not a specifically familial term and can often refer to someone you just look up to, but it does still have a familial connotation, thus reinforcing the idea of family once again. Kibutsuji's behavior around other demons also serves to further cement him as the antithesis to the concept of a loving human family. During the first mission and Asakusa arcs, it's revealed that Kibutsuji places a curse on other demons so that they don't reveal any information about him to humans, and we see the consequences of this with Susumaru and her brutal execution. Jumping ahead to the last episode of Season 1, we see Kibutsuji coldly dispatch of almost all the remaining demons in the lower 6 of his 12 moons, simply because they have not been able to produce significant results like the upper 6 have. He cares not for their desires or ambitions, only thinking about what they can do for him, and any sign of disobedience is an absolute death sentence. This stands in stark contrast to the commander of the Demon Slayer Corps, whom the Hashira refer to simply as the Master. The Master is perhaps the polar opposite of Kibutsuji in almost every manner possible, especially in how he relates to his subordinates. Rather than ruling through fear, the Master shows nothing but kindness towards other humans, and even demons like Nezuko. Instead of immediately deciding that Nezuko must be killed, he decides to take the opinion of Urokodaki, who speaks on behalf of Nezuko, into account when making his decision. And he gives Nezuko a chance to show the others that she can control her demonic urges. Even when his subordinates directly contradict his orders due to their own stubborn beliefs, he hears them out completely before calmly delivering evidence that will satisfy them enough to follow his orders. He doesn't put on the airs of an absolute and unmoving figurehead like Kibutsuji. The scar covering his face is one of my favorite symbolic gestures of this, conveying that he is comfortable showing his own weakness to those around him, rather than hiding it. As a result, those in the Demon Slayer Corps who meet him end up showing him the utmost respect and gratitude, not because he's their commander and can tell them what to do, but because he inspires them and makes them feel more comfortable around him. Tanjiro himself describes the Master's voice as one that makes him feel like he's floating. All of this is tied up in a neat little bow and drawn back to the theme of family when the Master refers to the members of the Demon Slayer Corps as his children. He cares deeply for them and wants them to grow stronger, much like a real parent would, thus making him the perfect counterpoint to Kibutsuji's didactical power structure. Jumping back to the earlier arcs again, there is one component of this whole family theme that still has me kind of speculative as to its efficacy, because thinking more deeply about it raises some very important questions. While Tanjiro is training in the mountains, Urokodaki uses hypnotic suggestion on Nezuko while she's sleeping in order to reinforce her behavior of not attacking humans by making it so that she perceives all humans as being part of her family. And this aspect has me extremely conflicted. On the one hand, it works with the broader theme of humans being able to form deeper bonds with any other human, and it is an important theme to reinforce. It also gives us this neat little twist where Nezuko also perceives Tamayo and Yushiro as her family. These two are demons, but they refuse to give in to their more feral desires and have decided to help human society in their fight against demons. In this moment, the main conflict of Demon Slayer evolves from humans versus demons to those who wish to preserve the bonds of family versus those who will destroy them for their own personal gain. An important evolution in this anime's thematic presentation. However, what bothers me about the hypnotic suggestion is that Urokodaki is essentially brainwashing Nezuko into having this behavior. It's not something she learned consciously or came up with on her own, and so it feels like she loses a lot of agency in this fight against her demon side. You could argue that this is her learning from Urokodaki, who is basically a surrogate father figure, but she's barely ever conscious during this part of the story, so her bond with this specific character doesn't run as deep as it does with someone like Tanjiro. Again, the thematic basis is still there, so I can kind of accept it, but I do need to point out the moments where this theme could have had a bit more thought put into it. I suppose you could also say that Tanjiro's choice to keep Nezuko with him instead of leaving her with Tamayo comes close to weakening the family theme as well, but this one I find to be more beneficial than harmful. Yes, Nezuko would be safer if she was away from the battlefield. However, for Tanjiro, being separated from his family once again would be absolutely devastating to him, and so he continues traveling with Nezuko. You could also see it as Tanjiro taking full responsibility for Nezuko rather than making her someone else's problem. And this is also one of the moments where Nezuko herself steps up with her own opinion. By grasping Tanjiro's hand while he's deliberating on this decision, she's saying that she wants to continue being with Tanjiro and support him in his efforts going forward as his sister. It's not just Tanjiro and Nezuko who play into this anime's central theme, though. Zenitsu, as annoying a character as he is, does present an interesting contrast to Tanjiro in how he relates to the idea of family. As an orphan, Zenitsu was taken in by a former Hashira after he repaid the debts Zenitsu owed, and thus Zenitsu became one of his apprentices. Unfortunately, Zenitsu doesn't appear to be very good at the whole swordsmanship business, and he often buckles under the weight of his own incompetence. Despite this, his master refuses to give up on him, often beating the lessons into him when he has to. Then we get this moment where Zenitsu talks with one of his master's other students. The student berates Zenitsu for not taking advantage of such a rare opportunity to be directly trained by a former Hashira, and that he also speaks too informally to their master. Essentially, he tells Zenitsu that he is wasting the master's time and energy, and Zenitsu believes him. His doubt in his own abilities forms the core of his character, and so hearing that doubt echoed by others just adds further mental weight upon him. However, the one person who never tells Zenitsu to quit is his master. Despite Zenitsu's overwhelming self-doubt and his apparent incompetence, his master refuses to give up on him. As a result, Zenitsu himself also refuses to give up. Though he whines obnoxiously and begs to not be put through more training, Zenitsu still tries in the end. Not just because his master saved him from poverty, but also because his master is the only one who ever treats him like his life is worth living. With this, we come back to the point about how Zenitsu speaks informally to his master, by which I mean he refers to him as Jisan, meaning Gramps. Again, it's not an absolute reference to a direct family member, but it does carry some of that connotation. To me, this flashback, especially the part with the unnamed student, is the seminal moment for Zenitsu's character. The moment where he finally clicks and starts to feel like a deeper, more human character rather than just a consistent series of personality traits. It's the moment where all of Zenitsu's actions up to this point and all that come afterwards start to make more sense. Zenitsu doesn't want to be a demon slayer, and his crippling self-doubt makes it difficult for him to even function. Despite this, he continues to serve in this role because he feels compelled to pay back his master for the kindness he showed him. His master is the only family he's got, even if it's not blood-related, and he feels internally compelled to pay back into that bond just as much as his master has. Even Inosuke also plays into this family motif to a certain degree. We see in a flashback at Naragumo that he was abandoned by his mother in order to protect him from what appears to be a demon attack. As such, Inosuke doesn't have much experience when it comes to interacting with families, or with other people in general for that matter. However, when he stays with Tanjiro and Zenitsu at the inn after the drum house, he begins to enjoy the comfort of the innkeeper who looks after him there. And he is then shown to be constantly looking back on these moments fondly in the story arcs that follow it. In this instance, we don't necessarily see a literal family being presented, but rather the concept of what having a family might be like for Inosuke, a caring and comfortable environment where he can relax and feel at home. And so he uses this as motivation to become strong enough to protect those who can give him this feeling. With all that said, we finally come to the Naragumo Mountain arc, a crowning achievement for Demon Slayer in terms of thematic execution. In this arc, Tanjiro and the others confront a group of demons who all use similar spider-like powers. As the story progresses, we discover that these spider demons have formed what they refer to as a family, often calling each other by familial titles like mother and father. On the surface, it appears as though these demons have finally figured out how to make this cooperation thing work, but it quickly becomes apparent that this is far from the truth. Our first encounter with these demons is through the mother character, and she initially poses a great threat to the demon slayers. However, as she attempts to defeat Tanjiro and Inosuke, who continuously manage to avoid her attacks, she is approached by Rui, a demon who takes on the younger brother role in the family, and is later revealed to be one of Kibutsuji's 12 moons, and he asks her why it's taking so long for her to defeat the demon slayers. The mother displays a palpable sense of fear, as though her very life is at stake, and Rui threatens to tell his father, whom we later learn is extremely abusive towards her, that she can't get the job done. Here, Rui is essentially threatening the mother to be a mother, rather than supporting her as a son, and when Tanjiro eventually finds her, she decides to embrace her own death, as she finds this preferable to continuing on with her so-called family life. This is but one of many ways that Rui misunderstands what having a family is actually like. We constantly see him talking about roles and whether or not his family members are fulfilling those roles correctly. For example, he chooses a huge bulking demon with incredible raw strength to be the father, signifying that he views this role in a traditional hypermasculine sense where the father is supposed to protect his family. However, as a result of this, he chose a demon who clearly has an unstable psyche and is prone to bouts of violent rage, which he often takes out on the mother. In response, Rui simply blames the mother for not understanding what made the father angry, something that even the viewer is left in the dark about, making it obvious that this isn't true at all. And we see later that Rui also physically punishes those in his family who defy him. In a way, it almost seems as though Rui is attempting to imitate Kibutsuji. Since it was Kibutsuji who gave him this incredible power, it may be natural for him to view Kibutsuji as a role model of sorts. As such, he rules his own family with the same terror and punitive force that Kibutsuji uses to rule over other demons. However, there's one major difference between these two that causes Rui to fall short of his own goals. Kibutsuji understands that what he is creating is not a family. As stated before, Kibutsuji most likely abhors the very thought of family. Rui, on the other hand, still desires family because of the trauma he took on by killing his own parents. But he doesn't understand that family bonds can't be created through force. He is simply mimicking Kibutsuji's behavior, a child mimicking the actions of an adult who they think is right, but is instead leading them down the wrong path. Rui believes that these demons whom he has taken into his family are obligated to pay into this artificial bond he has created with them, something that Tanjiro sees through almost immediately. After Tanjiro watches Rui punish his sister for defying him and questions why he would do this to one of his allies, Rui states that they are family, and because of that, their bond isn't as flimsy as something like a bond between allies. However, Tanjiro, someone who does have an incredibly strong bond with his family, understands that this line of thinking is horribly wrong, and that those with a powerful bond between them would realize that they value each other as precious family members and wouldn't act so heinously towards each other. This enrages Rui and redirects his attention entirely towards Tanjiro, almost as though Rui needs to defeat him in order to prove him wrong about the idea of family. As they begin to fight, it's clear that Rui has Tanjiro severely outclassed, almost immediately breaking Tanjiro's katana. Had he been alone, Tanjiro would have lost this fight rather quickly. But, as we already know, he isn't alone, and Nezuko manages to save him right before an untimely death. This action shakes Rui to his very core. All at once, he seems to realize that what he's been doing with these other demons isn't having a true family at all, and that the real thing is now staring him right in the face. But, much like before, he still fails to understand the full truth behind the matter. As his sister pleads with him not to abandon her in favor of Nezuko, he lashes out and splits her body into several pieces, ranting about how none of them ever performed their roles properly. Then he returns to Tanjiro and Nezuko, saying that he'll spare Tanjiro's life if he gives Nezuko to him. Rui perceives Nezuko's bond with Tanjiro as something that can be transferred onto him, which any normal human would see as ridiculous, much like Tanjiro does. But because Rui is so obsessed with attaining a true family bond, something that he has been lacking for practically his entire time as a demon, he doesn't realize how far off base he really is. He even says that he'll teach her to be a good little sister to him and punish her if she steps out of line just like everyone else. Rather than realizing that there is a fundamental flaw in his ideas about family, he instead tries to use other people to satisfy himself. The exact opposite of Tanjiro's ideology. He clearly states not only that he would never give Nezuko to Rui, but also that Nezuko is not even a thing that can be given or received. She's her own person with her own sense of agency, which she has exhibited countless times throughout the series up to this point. She's not a problem for Tanjiro to solve or a weapon to use against demons. She's his little sister, and he refuses to give in to Rui's insane demands because he wants to protect the bond he shares with her.
ふざけるのも大概にしろ！恐怖でがんじがらめに縛り付けることを家族の絆とは言わない！その根本的な心得違いを正さなければ、お前の欲しいものは手に入らないぞ！
Thus, Tanjiro and Rui begin to fight again, though Tanjiro is still at a blatant disadvantage, with Rui often taunting him with just how powerful he is. It seems as though this fight is entirely insurmountable, as Rui unleashes an incredibly powerful move that threatens to end Tanjiro's life. However, once again, Tanjiro is assisted by the bonds he shares with his family. But not just with Nezuko this time. As he's about to be killed by Rui's attack, his life flashes before his eyes, bringing him back to a memory of his father performing a ceremonial dance. Though his father appears sickly, he is able to execute a precise and physically taxing dance even in the cold winter air, which his father tells him is the result of a breathing technique that has been passed down through his family and that he must now pass on to Tanjiro. This technique lets Tanjiro push his body to the utmost limits of his abilities, allowing him to break free of Rui's attack and charge right for the kill. Meanwhile, Nezuko, who was previously rendered unconscious by Rui's torture, experiences a vision of her mother pleading with her to save Tanjiro, leading Nezuko to finally awaken her own demonic power, the ability to cause her own blood to explode into flames. Her blood, the blood that she shares with Tanjiro as his sister, has become her weapon to defend him. A truly poetic statement about how the bonds of blood can be utilized to achieve great things. The legacy of his past and the reality of his present combine into an ultimate attack that allows Tanjiro to finally defeat Rui, granting him victory and bringing an end to an absolutely phenomenal episode and one of the greatest battles of 2019. Or so we thought. Yes, as perfect as episode 19 is, it unfortunately gets undercut by episode 20, where it's revealed that Rui removed his own head before Tanjiro cut it off, only to be swiftly dispatched by Tomioka a short while later. Now, I understand why Tanjiro couldn't kill Rui from a narrative perspective. He's still the lowest rank in the Demon Slayer Corps, and it's implied that Hashiras like Tomioka are the ones who are most often sent out to defeat members of the 12 Moons. The power gap between Rui and Tanjiro, and even more so Tanjiro and Tomioka, is simply too massive for Tanjiro to believably defeat Rui with just himself and Nezuko. Or at least that's what I think the line of thought is here. To be honest though, I would have been totally fine with forsaking the narrative in this one moment in order to keep the core themes and their execution intact, because it really does undercut the whole power of family thing by having Tomioka make quick work of something that Tanjiro almost lost his life to. Not enough to make me hate this outcome, but certainly enough to make me disappointed. Aside from the main thematic tentpoles, there are a ton of small details about this arc that I find fascinating. One of which is that all of the spider demons die alone, rather than within close vicinity of other demons. Even though they are pretending to be a family, they still don't understand what that entails, and so they continue to act as solitary demons, just under the guidance of a more powerful demon. As such, they still fail at cooperation in every manner possible. They always end up facing demon slayers alone, and as a result, die alone. Of course, these ideas about family don't end with Naragumo Mountain. As I already said, the Master's character carries some pretty interesting connotations, but there are still plenty of others as well. Kanao's character also conveys some interesting ideas, but from the other end of the spectrum. Rather than reinforcing that a blood-related family is an inherent good, Kanao shows us that the bonds of family can't exist without effort. As a result of growing up in a broken family environment, Kanao becomes emotionally hollow, incapable of making decisions for herself. It's not until she begins living with Shinobu and her sister that she starts to get a better understanding of how a family is supposed to act. Here, the show tries to further complicate the concept of family by showing that a family is not an inherent good and needs to be approached with the right mindset and convictions. I'm also sure that this theme will continue on into the next arc of the series, as it seems far too pervasive to just abandon it entirely going forward. As for what that entails, Well, I guess I'll just have to wait and find out. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourke Tenjoin, Christine Seibert, Call Me Catlord, Ryan Johnson, Jennifer Spencer, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.